When my wife mentioned she had a business trip coming up, I didn't think much of it. She'd often talked about how stressful work had been lately and how her team relied on one another to get through it. But there was something different in her voice this time, something that didn't sit right with me. She brought up her work husband again, a term she'd always used jokingly, except now it didn't sound like a joke at all. My instincts started whispering that something was off. As the trip drew closer, she packed with a kind of excitement I hadn't seen in years. She insisted it was purely professional, yet she chose her nicest dresses and the perfume she only wore for special nights out with me. I didn't say anything, but suspicion kept tightening in my chest. Quietly, I decided to verify a few details myself. After some careful checking, I found out which hotel she had booked, and noticed that her so-called work husband had booked a room at the same place. Instead of confronting her outright, I reached out to his real wife. We'd met once before at a company dinner, and I still had her number saved. At first, she didn't believe a word of it. But once I showed her the hotel confirmation, reality hit her hard. We agreed we wouldn't sit at home pretending nothing was happening. We would confront them together, right where they thought they were safe. When we arrived at the hotel, we didn't storm in. We waited. The lobby was bright and busy, filled with travelers checking in and out. We sat quietly in a corner, scanning the crowd. It didn't take long before we saw them, laughing together, side by side at the front desk, looking every bit like a couple. My heart burned, but I forced myself to stay calm. I glanced at his wife beside me. Her face had gone pale, her hands were trembling, but her eyes were steady with the same resolve I felt. We approached just as the clerk handed them their key cards. Their smiles froze the instant they saw us. My wife's color drained, and the man beside her stuttered, completely lost for words. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. People in the lobby began turning their heads, sensing the tension in the air. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just said evenly, "Seems like you both forgot your actual spouses are standing right here." His wife stepped forward and added, "And you thought we'd never find out." The look on their faces was worth more than any angry outburst. They scrambled for excuses, talking about team bonding and friendship, but their matching luggage and the way they'd just been holding hands made their lies pointless. Everyone around could see the truth. They were caught, plain and simple, and there was no way to hide it. I turned to my wife and said quietly, "If this is what you really wanted, honesty would have been easier. But betraying me ends everything." Tears welled in her eyes, not from guilt, but from the fear of losing the comfortable life we'd built. I felt nothing but cold clarity. Beside me, his wife didn't hesitate. She told him their marriage was over, that he'd have to live with the fallout of his choices. The man looked helpless, realizing how fast everything he'd taken for granted was slipping away. We didn't bother arguing anymore. We just turned and walked out, leaving them standing in the middle of the lobby, exposed, humiliated, and silent. As we stepped outside, she whispered to me, "They thought they were clever, but they forgot we deserved the truth." The ride home was quiet, but for the first time in a long while, my thoughts were clear. I kept replaying all those years I brushed off her work husband jokes, convincing myself they were harmless. Now I knew they weren't jokes at all, they were warnings I ignored. Later that night, when she came home, she cried and begged for forgiveness, swearing nothing had gone too far. But to me, it didn't matter. Once trust is broken, there's no rebuilding it. Over the next few weeks, I focused on myself, on creating a life where honesty mattered more than pretending everything was fine. The pain was sharp, but it reminded me of something important. Betrayal wounds deeply, but exposing it restores your strength. My wife lost not just my trust, but the future we might have had. And I walked away with one quiet truth: sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply revealing what was hidden, at exactly the right moment.